Ms. Mezzo, could you please mute your microphone?
Yes, I will.
Should be ready to go. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fesser, can you please mute your microphone?
Good afternoon, Mr. Link. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Great. Well, we're going to start our hearing. We're on the record. And just for the record, if I could just confirm that you are Anthony Link,
Yes, I am.
and is your SID number 049776663?
Yes, it is.
And sir, did you receive your board packet, which is 245 pages that contained your notice of rights at least 14 days ago?
Yes, I did.
Well, my name is Don Reese with the Parole Board, and I'll be leading the hearing today. And also participating in today's hearing will be our board chair, John Bailey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Link. Can you hear me okay?
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
And also board member Kelly Kuklinski.
Good afternoon, Mr. Link.
Good afternoon. My pleasure.
And also today we have Michael Fesser with the Going Home To program. Mr. Fesser, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Fesser, do you plan on making a statement of support at the appropriate time during the hearing?
Yes, sir.
All right, very well. I'll check in with you later this afternoon. And then do we have a representative from the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, the committing jurisdiction?
Yes, we do. This is Deputy District Attorney Travis Sewell from Multnomah County, representing the committing jurisdiction today.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. And do you plan on making a statement to the board at the appropriate time?
Yes, I do plan on making a short statement.
All right, thank you. And we'll check in with you later. And then finally, former supervising officer Gina Meza, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
And did I say your last name correctly?
Mesa?
Mesa?
Yes.
Okay. And will you be making a statement at the appropriate time?
If requested to by the parole board, yes, or anybody else.
Okay, well, I'll check in with you later in the hearing. And Mr. Link, do you have any questions about who is here today for your hearing?
No, I don't.
All right. Mr. Link, this is your future disposition hearing. This is a hearing before the Oregon Board of Parole and Post-Prison Supervision to decide whether to deny your re-release on post-supervision or to set up a new release date. In terms of the exhibits that are part of the record today, we have the materials submitted by the parole board. Those are the materials in your hearings packet that we referenced earlier that were sent to you at least 14 days prior to today's hearing. The 245 pages, and there's no confidential documents that have been received or reviewed relative to your case prior to today's hearing. So we have the same materials that you have. There is one last minute item that the board did receive that's from you, Mr. Link, and the board received it yesterday, and that is your handwritten one-page letter referencing two of your cases, and you attached the judgment orders from those cases from Multnomah County. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we have that. It was received by the board yesterday. That will also be included as an exhibit. Also, the board received a letter, and if I understand correctly, you may not have this letter yet, from Elaine Close, Director of Adult and Youth Reentry Programs at Southeast Works. That's written to the board, and it states that she's confirming that you participated in a Flagger certification class held at Inverness Jail on 5/29/2024, successfully completed it and received his certification. It says certification card is at our office, ready for him to pick up when he's released. The trainer, the owner of IMN Traffic Specialties, offered employment to the students if they receive their certification. And it says, in conclusion, please let me know if there's any additional information she can provide. And so I don't think you have a copy of that letter.
I do.
You do?
I received a copy.
Great. Okay. So, and then in addition to that, I don't think we've received, we received a 6-page letter submitted by you previously and a 3-page letter that you had written to Kim Coons on the parole board staff earlier. Are there any exhibits that I missed or any other last minute exhibits that you want to offer the board for our consideration?
Well, I was wondering, did you happen to receive a letter or a correspondence from Providence Hospital?
Well, let me look, and I would invite my fellow board members, if that's something that leaps to mind, feel free to let me know.
I think it would have came in the form of an email from Heather Thompson. They picked it up from Providence and then supposedly emailed it. I gave a release of information to them, and they're supposed to have released emails that to the board.
Mr. Reese, I'm looking now, see also if I can find it. It does not.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell, and I see that Kim Coons is saying she didn't receive an email like that. Is that something, Mr. Link, do you want the board to keep the record open for a brief time in order to receive that email?
Yeah, if they would. But if you haven't received it by now, I don't think that you may not receive it, because the email was supposed to have already been emailed out. And if you don't have it, I don't know what I can do about it. I can't use a phone to call to have email. I don't think. And it spoke to my substance abuse and my ongoing health care, for my mental health care and my medications and different things like that, that my personal doctor was working with me on with Providence.
Well, if it's something you want the board to consider, and you think you have a way of connecting with them so they can transmit that email to Kim Coons with the board, we could certainly keep the record open for 7 days, say, if you think that's sufficient time.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Yes, sir, please.
Oh, okay, so let's do that. But otherwise, all of the materials that I mentioned as exhibits will be accepted into the record, and the board will keep the record open for this email you mentioned from Providence.
Okay.
All right. In terms of kind of a roadmap of where we're headed with this hearing, the board's going to ask some general questions about you, how you were doing when you were released from DOC custody back in August of 2021.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the violation report, the violations that brought you back into custody. We'll discuss your behavior since you've been back at the institution, and then we're going to talk about your plans if you are released back into the community. Do you have any questions about how this hearing is going to proceed, and are you ready to proceed?
I'm ready.
All right.
Nervous but ready.
Pardon me, sir?
Nervous but ready.
Nervous but ready. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's okay to be nervous as long as you're ready.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just got a message from Chair Bailey about how long the record will be open, and I said 7 days. Would you like to make an opening statement at this time to the board, or make any opening remarks to the board?
Yes, I would. First, I'd like to thank the board members for giving me the opportunity to have my issues heard before you. I completely understand why I sit before you today, and it is by my own admitted faults and no one else's that I'm here. I can accept complete responsibility for my actions today as well as in the past. And please, I'd like for it to be clearly understood that I don't view myself as being arrested by the officers when they came and got me. I believe myself to be rescued. I honestly do. I was in the throes of my addiction, and I had severe issues, which Providence has been treating me for, with my mental health issues, dealing with hallucinations and hearing voices and stuff like that, which I've now learned today that they're due to the psychosis that I contracted from using methamphetamines. And so I have to admit to that. And although today I feel a lot better, I still have a lot of ways. I still have a lot of ways to go per what the doctors have told me. They cautioned me about ever using the drug ever again. They said because of my age and because it hit me in the way it did so fast, and they were surprised because it normally took people a little bit longer, but I had to deal with it for a short period of time, and it kind of like ripped me apart. And I had my own doctors at Providence, which began to treat me. I went in on my own, and sometimes at the encouraging and urging from Mr. Fester and others that I go in and to seek treatment. And so that's what I did. I went to my doctors at Providence, and they put me on medications, and they advised me to get into go into detox and the drug programs and stuff like that, you know. And then a couple other doctors had came in and assessed me, and they said if I were to continue on, Anthony, it's like holding a gun to your head. If you one more time, and we'll probably be coming to visit you at the Oregon State Hospital down there in Salem. So it was pretty bad. So I totally destroyed myself. My friends, my family. No excuse. I got out in 2021 and I was fine. I did everything I was supposed to do. You know, I worked my jobs. I did about a year after that. I got tired of not being up to par in my personal relationship, as far as being able to had a personal issue going on with my spouse, and I wasn't, because of my prostrate, I wasn't able to perform that well as men of my age probably do. So I went to my doctors, and they prescribed different kinds of medications and stuff for me that didn't work. And so someone suggested the meth to me, which wasn't a drug of my choice in the past years. Cocaine was. And I have vowed never ever to use that ever again, and I did not. To this day, I haven't used it, but I did use this meth, and it seemed to help me, and I continued on, and it spiraled out of control. And that's where it landed me, in a bunch of trouble. And so I found myself in my apartment one day, and I was thinking people were trying to rob me and kill me, and I boarded myself up in my apartment, and I was wondering how I was going to get out of there. So what I did was I took my tripod, took my telescope, and I stretched it out, and I broke my window, my picture window out in my apartment, because I thought that I couldn't get to my front door. And so that's my neighbors. I knew I live in a senior citizens building, and I knew that my neighbors would wonder what was all the commotion going on up there with me, and I knew that they would call the police, and that's what they did. So the police came, and I opened the door, and I talked to them, and in the reports, I didn't even know it, but they said I was talking to myself. And anyway, they took me to jail. Well, they did that first. They asked me, could they have my ID, and I give them my ID. They ran the thing. They said, well, there's a warrant out for your arrest. And I had no idea why the warrant would be for my arrest. But I gave them no problem. I went in and went to jail, and I found out that there was a secret indictment for me from a year back that they had, that No one ever called me about an indictment. No one ever called me about Anthony coming in. No one came by my family's residence. No one ever called. The numbers don't change. They've been that way since I was 12 years old. I'm 64 today. As I would have went in, I would have went in. But that didn't happen. So I got a violation for the robbery too. And here I sit today. So the other thing that I like to say is that that my parole packet, my concern is with this packet is that it's dated back from 1998 and back. And it doesn't give an indication of who I am today as a person. It doesn't state who I am. It doesn't show who I am. And that was some 30 years ago. And I'm simply just not that person anymore. And hopefully I'm not measured by this crime that I haven't been convicted for. And there's some issues with that. And my lawyers have advised me to speak limitedly about the crime, because we still have ways to go. But then I told them, well, I had a concern because there's a bunch of charges in the discovery and now in the parole packet that I've never been charged for. I've never been accused of. I have never even been a question about them. And the first time I ever learned of them were inside this packet. I never knew they even existed. And there's places in here where I read that officers say that these charges are unrelated to what's going on with me. So why they're here, I have not a clue. And my biggest concern is that they have wanted posters in here, $25,000 reward posters in here. And it makes it look like I had some type of reward out for me when that had nothing to do with me. It has something to do with another crime somewhere with somebody else. It had nothing to do with me, had nothing to do with the crime that I'm allegedly a suspect of. And no one called me about anything, and they didn't speak to me about anything. The other issue that I have, there's another reference inside my parole packet to where the police were chasing somebody and they ended up in a fatality and they killed somebody because they were being chased by the police. Now, why that's in my packet, I have not a clue. But the only thing I can see it, this stands to incriminate me. I have nothing to do with that. The person that was driving that car, they got the person who was driving the car. I have nothing to do with it, so I'm wondering why is it in my discovery, or then why is it in my parole packet? And these charges or these things are unrelated to me, period. And so, having said that, that's about all I have for now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lake. That was helpful. That was a good starting place, I think, for the board and good background information. And I should mention it. You want to take any time during the hearing to, if you need to compose yourself or something, feel free to do so. We're certainly not in any kind of rush. So I think you said at the beginning of your opening statement that currently on some medications, is that right?
Yes.
What medications are you currently taking?
I don't really can remember the names of them. I know Zoloft is one of them that I'm taking. I know that. I know that drug. I'm taking some medications for the hearing the voices and stuff like that. And I'm taking several medications right now. And those medications they prescribed me when I was at home. For the hearing the voices and that stuff. And so what happens is they followed me to here. And so what they've added on since I've been here outside the mental health medications is the sleeping medications because I have problems with sleeping. So they've added those medications on to me, and also I'm now on the MAC program, they call it, where I do the Suboxone now. And so I'm up under that treatment now to where it is to try to keep me to abstain from using drugs. Although fentanyl wasn't my drug of choice, still it was in my system, heavily in my system, because unbeknown to me again, that I was told this by the doctors, that the methamphetamine now is heavily laced with fentanyl, and they put it in all kinds of drugs now to get you to keep using the drugs and stuff like that. So I had the problems, and so they put me on the Suboxone, which they said that it'll follow me when I go home, as the rest of my medications would. And Dr. Solidik at Providence Hospital is my primary doctor who will keep up with my medications and my different things.
And how are you feeling today mentally?
Mentally, I'm doing a lot better than what I was doing. I'm able to really think rational now. Things are a lot more clear to me. Although I'm still hearing the voices and stuff like that, they're starting to subside, so they're getting smaller. And they cautioned me and told me that it would be a while before I'm ever back the same. So, but I'm better than I was. A lot better. A lot better.
Well, that's good. Do you feel mentally clear enough that you feel like you can have an effective hearing with the board today?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And did I understand you correctly that you said that the doctors are thinking that it was your exposure to methamphetamine and maybe fentanyl that caused you to enter into a psychotic state?
It's the fact that that's what they said.
Okay.
They said I had a methamphetamine-induced psychosis or something like that. And it's the reason why I was doing the hallucinating and stuff like that. I was so bad to the point to where it's one evening I ran across the Banfield freeway thinking that people were shooting at me. And God was with me. And I came very close to losing my life. The drug is bad. It's bad. So that's what they say. I used to think people would be in my backyard. I would call my mother and them too. I said, hey, who's this person over there by the thing? Is somebody in your backyard? My mother and them, they would go there and look, they say, Anthony, no one's there. No one's there. And I wouldn't believe it. I would hear conversations. I would hear my mother and my brother talking. I would be outside, and I would thought the voices, I would hear them talking about, well, should Anthony be here or not? Should we send him away from here? And I would open the door and there was nobody there. My mother would be in the kitchen and I would ask my mom, why was you just talking to the kid? She said, no, he's not here. And a test to that is that 30, 40 minutes later, he would be driving up the street. So I knew that he wasn't there. My relationship became very difficult with my significant other. I would blame her for cheating on me and all kinds of things, and she never was. I destroyed my relationship because of this drug. I could never use this drug ever again under any circumstances. It's just totally blew my life up. I write books. I have books in Amazon stores. I have manuscripts that need to go into the publisher so they can put these books on the stand. And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even, the books are finished, ready to go. I wouldn't do it for the life of me. I didn't know why I wouldn't do it. I built bank products that need to go into investors. I went to the World Trade Building one day and I got up there at the desk and was supposed to go into a meeting and I just stood there and I couldn't go in. I don't know why. After my employer, they decided not to keep the business here in Oregon anymore. They left and went to Texas. I was supposed to go and get my unemployment, and my unemployment was like around $418 a week. I wouldn't even go get it. You know, things just happened that I don't know why they happened. I was under the influence of that stuff, and it didn't make sense, you know. And so it didn't make sense to me. Well, I was going through.
So it looks like you were released in August of 2021.
Yeah.
From the Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
Right into the community.
Right.
And so help us understand when you were first released back in the summer of 2021. Were you able to get a job at that time?
Yes. I got a job immediately.
I'm sorry?
Got a job immediately.
Got a job immediately. What was the job?
Immediately once I was released. I got a job working for Portland Family Home Shelter. It's a shelter home for families. And what they would do if the mother and the kids were together, and also the father, it's one of the biggest shelters in Portland, I do believe. They would house families. And so that was my first job. I got a job with them. And I stayed with them for a while. And what I was with them, I was more like a peer. Although I watched the front desk and did some security work, I was a peer to the residents that stayed there. They had apartment complexes that they would house them in. And so I was a peer to them. I stayed there for a while, and after that, I went to Blunt Fine Foods, and which is a job everybody's wondering why would I go to Blunt Fine Foods, because I build small businesses and I do a variety of different things, and so but I loved the job. It humbled me. I didn't mind it. I was a janitor there, and I stayed with them for quite some time. As a matter of fact, my parole officer I just have some questions that my parents and my family and my supporters and everybody would say, well, Anthony, you need to get a job, do this or whatever. And I think that it was taken out of context as if I never have worked before or something. Because the reason why I sent the parole board and I sent in my taxes I sent in, and they should be in, they're in my parole packet to show that I did work. I wasn't not working. You know, I work, plus I'm a licensed hairstylist. And so I would often, you know, to supplement my income, although I made pretty good money, I would cut people's hair. Because I've been a licensed hairstylist for over 30-something years. And so I do hair, but sometimes I get tired of it and burn out because I've been doing it for so many years. And I want to do other things. I want to write my books and, you know, I want to do other things. So I was fine. I was out after about a year. After about a year is when I decided to try this meth stuff. And it took a while well, really it wasn't that long, but it took a while for it to take its toll on me, but it did. But still, I was able to go to work. I worked my jobs. I did the things that I was supposed to do up until the point to where I couldn't do the things that I was supposed to do anymore. And that's when everything started to really unravel and fall apart for me. Although I would think that I was just fine. I would dress the part and look the part, but inside I was not okay.
And did I understand in your opening statement, you said that you started using meth because someone told you it might help you in the bedroom department, you know, help you get an erection?
Exactly. It would help me. It would help. I was using it as a stimulant. So I have prostate issues that I've acquired through the years because I think it's because of my age, I suspect. And that's what my doctors say. And the Providence, my doctors, they would prescribe the Viagra's and the Cialis and all this stuff. And it really wasn't working for me. And so, yes, somebody said, well, hey, you know, try this, you know. Although I was reluctant to try it, and then for a long time, I decided to try it after continued failures in the bedroom, and it just was a sad situation with my personal life. I tried it, and it worked, and I continued trying it, but each time, almost, I would have to use more and more and more to get a desired effect. And it snowballed, and then it got to the point to where it wasn't helping anymore. And I was just, you know, using the stuff, and then that's when I become unraveled. It got to be too much for me. And I self-destructed inside myself. Then at the urging of my family and friends, I started seeking the doctor's help and attention and stuff, and trying to get off of it and get back to what I was. But then that happened to me in my apartment, and here I am today.
So you said you were reluctant to use the methamphetamine to assist you with your bedroom performance, but were you involved in drug treatment at that time?
Yes, I was. I was involved with at that time I was involved with the Organ Exchange Clinic in Cascadia. I was involved with them both. I understand that I'm an addict, first and foremost, and I understand that I'm going to be an addict until the day I die. I'm going to always have to do the maintenance around my sobriety, and I understand that and know that. But what happened to me is I started using the excuses that all this treatment that I had, because I was dealing with 2 different programs, and I had my job going, and I was doing too much. And so I started cutting back on my hours and stuff with my addiction help. And that was allowing me to have too much time to dwell into things I had no business getting involved with, like the methamphetamine, just to try it. I thought I was doing well and super because I wasn't using the drug that destroyed my life previously, in the previous years. I wasn't using it anymore. So my thinking was, which certainly was the wrong thinking, is that I could use this as a medication to assist me a bit, and I'll be able to manage it, and I'll be just fine. But that is not true. You cannot manage. You just can't manage drugs. I think even if they're prescribed drugs, you still can't manage when you're going to become addicted to those if you continue on with them or whatever it is. That's my belief.
So your previous drug of choice was cocaine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you describe your relationship with your supervisory officer during that time when you were released in August of 2021?
Well, I'll tell you, I had a good relationship with my supervisory officer, and I honestly don't remember what their names were or who they were, because it was during that time, it was kind of like during a COVID time. And even with my dealing with Cascadia in the organ exchange clinic, mostly I deal with them like over the Skype and this stuff like that. And so before I knew it, the parole office, they kind of like put me out on my own. And this is what I told them is my belief, that I was on an inactive status, although when I got into the jail this time, my parole officer told me, he said, no, Anthony, you wasn't. You were just on a broke down minimum type status. But I was told that I never had to report. I never had to call in. I never had to report. And the only time I ever had to report is if I was to leave town or something like that, then tell them where I was at. And so I said, okay. And so I went on about my life, thinking that I never had to report. Which I'll admit was not a good thing for me, because by me not having to report it to anybody, that also too gave me an opportunity to delve into the narcotics or whatever without anybody saying, hey, what are you doing? Other than, Mr. Professor and other people who I hid from quite a bit, because they were on me. I have no associates and friends that use drugs. All of them are pretty responsible, and they all got on me about it, and I love them for that. I appreciate them for that. They gave me a lot of support, and so I used to hide from them. So that was my extent with the parole office. I didn't have to report. And so in my thinking that I didn't have to report, so I'm sitting here wondering today, well, why do I have all this stuff here that only speaks in terms of who I am 30 years ago? But they wouldn't know who I was. They wouldn't know that I build businesses, that I have all these different certifications, or that I do a lot of different things, that I have books in the stores, and they wouldn't know these things because I never had to report and tell anybody anything about me.
Well, who told you that you didn't need to call in or report?
The parole office told me that. I would have never, ever not went in to report if they didn't tell me that. they instructed me to do that. They called me in one day and they said, Anthony, we're putting you on what I heard was inactive status or whatever it was. You don't have to report. This is what you need to do. And that was it. I said, that's it. And this is it. They said, that's it. You're out of here. You know, and I left and I went on about my life. And it was, you know, and I was fine. I was doing fine for quite some time.
Did you ever meet with Ms. Misa?
I can't say that I did meet with Mrs. Misa. I know that it was a lady that was the last person that I talked to. And that could have been Mrs. Misa. And I simply don't remember it. But it was a lady, was the last person I talked to. I know they put me from a man to another lady. And then the last lady I saw was an elderly lady around my age or a little bit older than me, perhaps. She's around, could be my age. And she's the one that told me, Anthony, we're putting you on such and such status. You seem to be doing okay. We're going to put you on such and such status. And that's the last time I saw a parole officer. No one ever came to my home. They never called my home. They never ever came around, period. Even if they said that there's a secret indictment out for me, if there was a secret indictment and a warrant out for me, still the parole officer never called and said, Anthony, come in. My phone numbers, those numbers have been, my number's been the same since I was 12 years old. My family, at the family estate, they don't change that number. It stays the way it is. And that's always the number. We call it headquarters, my parents' home. And that's where I predominantly lived at. That's where I stayed at until these last few months before I got arrested. Then Pacific Northwest Pilot Project and Home Forward got me into an apartment.
So how long exactly from the time of your release in August 2021 until you started using meth?
I would say roughly about a year. About a year or more, a little more. It wasn't that much more. It could have been 15 months or something like that.
And how frequently were you using methamphetamine?
Well, at first I wasn't using it. I would only use it before I would get ready to be with my spouse. But then I started using it more and more and more. It just snowballed. And to where that I couldn't even use the excuse to say that I was using it for those personal reasons, because they stopped even helping for that reason, you know. And I was just out there.
So at that point, how frequently were you using meth?
Every day.
And how much were you using every day?
That's hard for me to say. Meth is relatively a cheap narcotic that'll just destroy you. And it's I don't really know measurements and stuff like that. I'm not a drug dealer or nothing. I buy $50 worth of meth and it'll last me for a whole week. I do know.
And at some point, did you stop working?
Well, I never stopped working. What happened is that my job, they shut down. They gave us bonuses, which a lot of my money went to my Charles Schwab accounts for my retirements for my retirement pension, but they closed down. And when they closed down and they went somewhere else, that's when I started cutting a little bit more hair every now and then. And I was supposed to go and do my unemployment. I went and did my unemployment a few times, and I got my unemployment, which was $418 a week. I got. But then I stopped going to get my unemployment. Because I stopped doing the job thing, doing the work around maintaining unemployment. I stopped doing it. You know, I just stopped doing everything. You know, I just stopped doing everything. I just quit. I quit.
What happened to your relationship with your significant other?
It broke down all the way. Well, it didn't break down all the way. My significant other, they never have left me ever. They were always there. I was always able to go home. My family's doors were always open to me, but they were always, yelling at me. Anthony, go to the doctor. Anthony, what are you doing? Look at yourself, And I didn't want to look at myself, and I didn't want to go to the doctors. And so what would happen is I would hide from everybody. I wouldn't go see people. They begged me to come in, come home and do whatever or however, and I wouldn't go. I was like a runaway child almost. And I wouldn't go. The agencies, they get in contact with me because pretty much I know a lot of those people that have those programs and stuff, and I've developed relationships with them throughout the years. And so they would all look for me and call me, and they would try to help me. And I would actually hide from them, And then at one point in my last few months, a couple of months, like Mr. Professor, he would always tell me, he would say, hey, let's go. Are you ready to go in? I said, well, I'm not ready to go in. I don't need to get my affairs in order first or something like that. And he was insistent that I go into detox and go into a 6-month program. And that's what I had to do as far as he was concerned. He didn't want to hear anything else. But Anthony, listen, we can talk about the world. We can do everything. You're a sharp guy, good individual, all that. But you have an issue, and we need to direct handle the issue first. And so I promised him that I would, as I promised my mother and my significant others and everybody. And I wouldn't do it. I thought I could do it on my own, I thought I could do it, and I couldn't do it. My doctors in Providence, they would sit and I love them because these are serious doctors in these big hospitals. They actually would take out the time to sit and talk with me for hours about my addiction and try to understand what I was going through and try to get me into these programs and stuff. And so, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you next about the violation report that brought you back into custody. But first, let me check with Board Member Kuklinski to see if she has any follow-up questions about what we've been talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Link, when did you get placed on Suboxone? Was that when you got into the Multnomah County Jail? Was that upon arrest immediately, or when did that happen?
I got placed on Suboxone when I got into the Multnomah County Jail. Because what happened was that I bugged them and urged them to put me on the drug unit to where I could take advantage of the classes with Volunteers of America and other things. And so that's where also I have letters, I think, in my parole packet from Volunteers of America and all those and a few others. But so they put me in there, and my attorney, out of concern, had a doctor come and see me a psychologist and psychiatrist come and see me. And after he saw me, when he recommended that I do the program because he thought that I was having issues. And so I enrolled in the program and they put me in the program pretty fast.
I'm wondering how is your memory kind of your actions while you were using drugs? Are there blank spots or black spots as far as kind of what was happening while you were heavily using meth? Are there just pieces that you don't remember?
I have blank spots. For the most part, I would like to say that I remember everything, but the reality of it is that I wasn't in reality most of the time. So, what's real and what's not real, to me, you know what I'm saying? I would, oh my God. I would pretty much say that I'm in reality. I remember,
Are there any pieces that are missing for you? Are there spots or chunks of time that you feel like you struggle to remember altogether?
sometimes there are, but I know better than that. I think that my mind is a lot stronger than that. So it's even hard for someone to convince me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. If I'm seeing something. And so I would say that I remember everything, and I'll be point blank with you. When they told me that they had my DNA on some cup for this Dottie situation, it scared the death out of me, to be perfectly honest with you, because I know that I wouldn't throw a rock in a race ride. And I use that and saying that like that because I'm sincere about that. But I had to think, and so I'm not going to say that I blanked out or blacked out or anything like that. There'll be no excuses on my part for anything that I do that I have to be responsible for.
I'm curious, historically, have you ever had your drug use result in auditory hallucinations?
Have I said again, please?
Historically, prior to your use of meth, with your historic drug use, have you ever had it result in any kind of auditory hallucinations?
Never.
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 Okay.
I've never
Okay.
experienced anything like this ever in my life. Ever.
I would imagine that would be really scary.
It is. It's traumatized. I know today that I have to admit that I'm a broken man today because of that. And I had to face that reality. And I had to move on and try to deal with it as best I can. So, but this has never happened to me ever before. Ever.
I'm curious, I appreciate you being open. I understand that this is, these questions are difficult and it's difficult to talk about because it's scary. It's scary what you're going through. I'm wondering if you can tell me what sort of things, when you've heard voices, what sort of things do they say to you? Are they telling you to do things? Are they, what does that kind of look like for you?
Well, it's not good.
Okay.
Not good. They always would tell me negative things, not good things. They would tell me that no one likes me, no one wants me. This person is out to kill you. These people don't want to hire you. They don't really want you working for you. I used to be at work, and they had to. Blunt was a pretty big business, and I was the head janitor. So I was in charge of this entire facility, And so they had a big speaker system in there, which they would call people over and announce different things. And I would always hear like the employees is talking about me or speaking about me. So I thought, you know, and I would go to my boss and say, well, hey, man, you know, what's up with this? You allowing the employees to go over the speaker system and speak about me like this and saying such and such and such. And they would look at me like, Anthony, have you completely lost your mind? And but then after a moment, they understood what I was going through, and they suggested that I go and consult with my doctors and stuff like that. And they would often let me go off work when I had a hard time to go see my doctors and stuff.
So do you feel aware today, like when you hear something, how are you kind of identifying that, or hearing a voice? How are you identifying that, okay, this is still part of, you know, the psychosis that I'm still coming out of? How are you kind of differentiating between what is reality, what is actually you are hearing versus maybe some of that psychosis that's still present?
Because when I hear voices, the only time I can hear them is when there's a silence going on, or no one else is speaking, or anything like that, you know? So if there's music playing, which, you know, my family bought me headphones so I can always listen to music and stuff like that, you know, to try to get away from these crazy voices. But I know that I'm not hearing voices right now. I know that I'm speaking to the board here.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm wondering, did the voices ever like command you to do things or hurt people or hurt yourself, anything like that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, say again. Yes.
Yeah, they did, but I never do it. I never
Okay.
do it. What happened is I used to, and I found this out from other meth users that would use it. I said, well, hey, do you guys use these voices? This is the first time I've ever experienced this stuff. They say, well, yeah. And they said they're going to say negative. The voices are going to always be negative and don't ever do anything they say. They're going to always be negative. And so the first thing I realized is that, yeah, they are very negative, you know, because they speak in terms of my mother and my father, and they say things that they're just crazy, you know. And so I never listened to the voices. Sometimes because of my paranoia issues, and I did get more and more paranoid. If the voices say someone was behind me with a gun, then I would know that, well, okay, no one's not behind me with a gun. And I know they're not there, but then I would look anyway, you know, just to make sure. So I found myself looking anyway, or going this way or that way, simply to get away from the drama or the trouble that they say that existed that really never existed. I was always running from myself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's helpful. You and Mr. Reese talked about your supervision with Multnomah County. And, you know, so I have been a probation and parole officer for a lot of years, about 23 years now. So I'm pretty familiar with the system. And I know that there is people can be placed on inactive status, which you talked about today. And I also know that people can be placed on like a reduced supervision, like a reduced supervision team, RST, that I know that Multnomah County has. Was there, as far as you remember, was there a clarification of what you were put on and specifically instructions for what you were to do while on that unit?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I thought it was an inactive status.
Okay.
And the only thing that I understood is that stay out of trouble, keep your nose clean, keep doing what you're doing. And I was doing the right thing. And
Okay.
you don't have to report to us. If you leave town, These are the things that you have to do. Now, I know that I didn't have to report because I've been on parole before. And a parole
Yeah.
officer would have called my home or come looking for me or whatever it is. You know, with my past, they would have come to my home and they would have come looking for me. So I knew that I thought that I was, and I still think today that I didn't have to report.
I'm curious, when you were kind of going through all your troubles, did you consider at all reaching out to the probation and parole office and calling the parole officer and finding out, you know, if they could refer you for services, or saying, hey, you know what, me being on inactive status, because that was your understanding, it's probably not a good thing for me. Was that something that you considered at all?
No, I didn't think like that. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Because I always think that I'm a person that can, I'll deal with this. I'll go get my own doctors. I'll go get in my own programs. I'll be able to handle this and I'll be able to deal with it. You know, and I wasn't able to deal with it. And the parole office would have been an excellent place for me to go to.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I didn't go to it. Instead, I went to to the people that I was used to talking to and being with, and that's where I went.
Okay. I mean, so I guess I want to clarify, are you opposed at all to contacting the parole department in the future, as you feel like you're maybe having small hiccups? Like that's when you should call, right? Not when it's already full blown out, right? Like when you're having kind of small hiccups along the way.
Absolutely not. I'm not opposed to it. Now that I know what I know today,
Mm-hmm.
I would use them quite a bit, actually. To be perfectly honest with you, I know that they have a wealth of resources and stuff like that. I don't know whether I'll be able to use them all, or if I already have too many, because I have a lot of support. But the parole officer will be a good thing to me and for me, because I would always have to notify them and contact them and show up there and stuff like that. And it would be another support system for me, and quite naturally, well, how would you say it? A bridge or something that would help to support me and hold me up and
Sure.
keep me accountable to, and I need that. You know, and I'm not saying that I don't need that. I do need that. It's only obvious that I need that. You know, and so I'm okay with that.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions. I'm going to check in with Mr. Bailey to see if he has any questions on these topics.
Thank you. I just have one follow-up. You know, Mr. Link, it occurred to me when you were talking to me about when you were telling Mr. Reese about what Mr. Fesser was telling you, the advice he was giving you, sounded like very wise advice to me. And I'm just wondering, do you kind of wish you'd followed that advice? And
Yeah,
do you feel like things would have ended differently for you?
yeah. If I had did what he instructed me to do and not made up the excuse that I need to go get my affairs in order or not did whatever, I would have went into he offered to take me himself to the detox and then put me into an inpatient program, and I'd have been fine today. I'd have been fine today because I got back to doing what I'm really am supposed to be doing in life and with my life, with my family and some people in the community.
Yeah. I just kind of had that thought as you were saying what he was telling you to do. Just kind of had that thought.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Link. That was the only follow-up question I had. The others have asked you the questions that I had for you.
Hey, Mr. Link, while we were just hearing you answer Mr. Bailey's question, the board just received a letter from Providence. So we do have it. It's dated October 7th, and it's from Dr. Michael Solidik.
Yeah, Solidik, yeah.
Yeah, and it says you're a patient of his at PMG Lloyd Family Medicine Clinic since 9/17/2021.
Mhm.
Last seen on 1/3/24.
Mhm.
Treated mental and physical health conditions, counseling regarding substance use, mental health conditions, and prescribed antipsychotic medication as part of his care. So
Mhm.
we now have that letter that you referenced, and that'll be part of the record, one of the exhibits for this hearing. And because we have it, we will close the exhibits. We won't hold them open, like I said at the start of the hearing, because now we have that document. Does that sound satisfactory to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. And thanks to Kim Coons for getting that for us. Let me ask you now about the violation report that brought you back into custody. That includes a report from your PO and hearings officer, and there's a report associated with that. Did you have the opportunity to review those documents?
Yes, I did.
And for the record, the board reviewed those reports and found you in violation of your conditions as indicated in the order of revocation dated August 7th, 2024. That was mailed to you on August 14th, 2024. What did you think about those reports?
Well, I thought that the report mainly and basically was composed of dated doctor's reports or psychiatrist reports and information about me personally. Nothing about who I am today. It was just all stuff that was 30 years ago and then back from that. And then it was just fully composed of police reports concerning the charges. The one part in there, there was a part in there which I have in another report. It's not in my discovery, to where I guess my parole officer was listening to my phone calls. I guess my phone calls had been listened to, and I was my only concern about that is that I think that I was depicted to be someone that I'm not. Through my stress and my this and my that, the things that are going on with me and my spouse we get into verbal arguments about whether I should do this or do that, or don't do this or do that. I have a tendency to get loud, and she has a tendency to get loud. And I think that those bit parts of our interactions were taken out of context and made me out to be a bully or a villain or something like that. And that I'm not. I think that she sent a letter to the board on her own account, not by me. She sent a letter on her own account, and I've read the letter. And after reading the letter, I have nothing but admiration for the lady.
Okay, so, and I'm really talking specifically about the report that led to findings of violation of your post-prison supervision. So let me kind of focus you in on that. And the finding first was that you violated general condition number 10 by failing to obey all laws by committing an armed robbery at Dottie's on Northeast Gleason Street in Gresham on May 6th, 2023.
Okay,
Right? And in the report, it mentions that you were interviewed by Detective Pick from GPD, Gresham Police Department, on April 2nd, 2024, regarding the robbery, right?
okay,
And he told you that you were seen on surveillance video committing the robbery, holding a cup of water in your hand with a napkin, and that you drank from the cup on video, and that they found your matching DNA on the cup.
okay.
And so based on that, based on the police reports, based on their surveillance video, you were found in violation of general condition number 10 for failing to obey all laws. Do you want the board to know anything about that?
I'll speak to that and to where my attorney has advised that I can speak to that. I plead not guilty to this crime, and I would hope that the board would try me, convict me, and sentence me before we have our say, actually. Having said that, the DNA evidence is, for me, alarming in itself. I admit to frequenting the establishment. I would often walk by there on my way from my parents to go to the Max line, and I'd go in and play a little video. There was a little game I could play on the video, and that I would do. But that's not me on your photograph, as in the rest of these photographs. Now, I'll admit that it looks like a lot like me. I'll admit that from the start. But that's not me on your photograph. The other thing that I would have to say is that, from our understanding, they collected a DNA evidence from a cup, from the cup that was used, that they say that they saw the suspect using. If the parole board would look on the evidence charts, you'll find no cup in evidence. And then supposedly they took my DNA evidence, they lifted it from the cup with the swab and put this swab in evidence, and then made a DNA extract out of a swab that supposedly was linked to me. But yet, if the parole board would if the parole board would turn to page 51 or 54 of this discovery in my parole packet, it says that the swabs were consumed and destroyed. And then further down, it says that the extract was consumed and destroyed. And that's the bulk of what they call Exhibit 1.1. So my attorney spoke to me and said, well, if they don't have the cup and they don't have a swab because they use it up or whatever, and then did away with the extract, then what is there for our forensic people to inspect? And which there would be nothing to inspect. There would be no evidence for them to inspect. And so, well, that wasn't really good enough for me, because I don't believe that they'll just write anything on these pieces of paper. But it's my lawyers think it's good enough to have this evidence suppressed or get away with it or whatever it is, because it's the evidence of no evidence. You know, there's no extract. And this is by their own admission and their own reports that they don't have any of this stuff. So my question was, well, how do you come up with me out of this stuff, even regardless if you can have it dismissed at this point or have the evidence suppressed at this point, because there's no evidence for us to analyze, then how do you come up with me, period? And so then I went to we looked at the evidence where they said that they entered into the machine, the CODIS machine, and at first the CODIS doesn't come back with a match for me. And this is by their own admission in their reports. And then they say it comes back as a match for Anthony Link, but they say in the reports that some digits were missing in the SID number of my SID number. So now I'm wondering, if digits are missing in the SID number, then it's not my SID number. And so, of course, we had the SID number check that the CODIS thing came back for, and it definitely is not, it wasn't me. There wasn't me. So then they said in the reports is that they did a date of birth and name query to come up with Anthony Link. Now, if you know it's Anthony Link, or you think it's Anthony Link, why would you have to do a date of birth and name query to come up with me? First and foremost. Then they said, after they did the query, they took extra digits and inserted it into my SID number so that it can match my SID number. So I would like to know is what came first. Was it the number or the name, or the name and then the number? Is it the chicken or the egg come first? We don't know. So at this point, my attorneys are going to look to suppress this evidence. And so one thing, the important thing is that when I went to court after I was arrested, and the judge has this stuff on his desk, I'm sure. The judge recogged me. He recogged me with the instructions straight to me. He said, Anthony, he said, go home and go get some help. That's what he told me. He said, go home and go get some help. But I couldn't be released because my parole officer put a parole hold on me. So my hope is that the Multnomah County Court found it okay to release me and not hold me for this, although I would have to stand accountable for it and we would have to deal with this issue. I would hope that the parole board would not try, convict, and sentence me for this, but allow me to be able to go home and continue my treatment and do the things that I'm supposed to do in the community in a just way. And I have a lot of work to do. So, having said that, that's about all I can say for the case. I can't sit in here and delve into it anymore. I can only speak about what's on the record, and then all those charges in here that are not my charges, which my attorneys advised me to, for to let you guys know that those charges aren't anything concerning me.
The second violation found was of general condition number 7 for changing your address. And the report says that you told your PO that you were living with your mom at her home at 3338 Northeast 165th Lane in Portland. But then police went to a call on March 30th, 2024 at 1515 Southwest 12th Avenue in downtown Portland and found you living there in apartment 410. So you were found in violation of changing your address without permission or notification to your PO. What do you think about that violation?
I plead guilty to that, or non-contestant, or whatever they call it, because I didn't call nobody to say, hey, I was moving. And I actually had moved there, I'll say roughly, I wouldn't even say 90 days, but 67 days before I got arrested. I had moved. If it's 90 days, it could be 90 days that I had moved. But still, I collect my mail and all my stuff at my parents'. But yeah, I had moved. I know I did not call. I would have to plead guilty to that. There's no excuse for, I didn't call him. I didn't know that I had to. But common sense today would say, well, yeah, you were supposed to call him and, but I didn't call at that time. I didn't do it. So I'm not going to sit up here and try to justify it.
Okay. And there's a note in the report from a 1996 report by a psychologist, Terry Lally, who said, at that time, you were a career criminal who has a severe drug and alcohol problem and is hostile and aggressive. Now, from what you've been saying, I'm guessing you would say, well, that was almost 30 years ago, and that's not who you are today. Is that right?
That's not who I am today, because I'm not hostile nor am I aggressive. And me and Mr. Lally, we talked about that. I'm not hostile or aggressive. I'm just not. But you would have to say that if I were to continue to use drugs, and I did continue to use drugs, then my addiction stayed intact. I can't say that he was wrong, and about my addiction. And so, and I know that years ago, when I was in that, I was dealing with Dr. Terry Lally at the Cornerstone Drug Program, which was the Department of Corrections rented a ward from the Oregon State Hospital. And we were at the Oregon State Hospital, and my records was whatever we talked about in there was supposed to be sealed. And today, here I am being measured by them today, and no fault of anyone on this board, but I'm just wondering if I'm in a drug program, in a program to where they say, Anthony, dump everything, everything's sealed here, what happens here stays here. Then why am I being measured by years and years later? And I know that I gave a release information back then to the parole board because I was getting ready to graduate from the program, and I gave a limited release information to them so that they could look in and see how I was doing. And so, well, my belief is that my files never got closed back up or something. And so that's continued on. But Dr. Terry Lally made a prediction that I can't really hide from. I went back to using drugs, but being hostile and aggressive, I make it different with that. I don't hurt people. Well, I had to take that back too, really be honest about it, because in hurting myself and doing whatever it is, still emotionally and mentally, I know that I've hurt somebody.
In the hearing officer's report, it says that you said your PO, Ms. Misa, didn't know who you were and didn't try to find out who you were. Did you say that? And what did you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that the first time I talked to Mrs. Mesa, and I'll tell you, if I'd have been talking to Mrs. Mesa the whole time I was on parole, I wouldn't have been using no drugs. I'll tell you that, because Mrs. Mesa was on me like my mom, and I respect her for that. I honestly and sincerely do. But I felt that I was being characterized by this robbery, and the argument I have with my spouse, and then Mr. Professor and people that know me, all my peers and stuff telling me, Anthony, you should go in. And so she was just really on me about all that stuff, which is fine. But then she didn't know who I was as a person. She's never asked me, well, were you working? Did you work? How did you work? When did you work? Where did you work? What have you been doing throughout the course of these years? You know what I'm saying? Or let's fact check it, let's back check it, or none of that, And there's a host of things out there that will substantiate who I am as a person today. And I'm simply not. I thought I was being depicted like I was some type of monster or something, and I am not that. I am not that. I'm certainly not who I was 30 years ago. I'm a grandfather today. I'm a father. I'm a son. I work. My interests are to help people in the community. I don't say it because I don't like to say it, because I never knew what my mission was in life, but I'm a minister today. I don't do what I used to do. I'm not that person. I'm just simply not that person. And I would have liked for Mrs. Mesa to get to know me for the person who I am and allow me to be able to get her the information, and then she can get to the agencies and organizations and stuff like that to figure out who I am.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me check in with Ms. Kuklinski.
I don't have any other questions on this topic. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. And I think you've covered this topic well. I don't have any additional questions either. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. So, Mr. Link, in terms of what is going on with you now since your return to custody, I think we've learned a little bit about it already. One thing we haven't talked about is your physical health, and it looks like your right arm is in a sling. Is that right?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I tell you, the doctor has said the bottom line is I'm getting old. I'm getting old, and what happens is my arm pops in and out of socket is what it does, and it's extremely painful for me at night. Why at night when I sleep, but that's when it's extremely painful for me. And so what they do is try to isolate it during the day. And I'm bad about wearing this, to be honest about it. But until they figure out what they're going to do with my arm, if anything, I don't think they're going to do anything. I'll probably have to wait till I go home and let Providence deal with it. But I have to wear, I'm supposed to be wearing this sling and taking the aspirin or whatever that I never take either. So I'm pretty bad about following doctor's orders.
Do you have any other physical health problems?
Well, my knees are getting bad. I'm just getting older, and so I think I think that I'm in fairly good health. My blood pressure is always good, and everything. But my prostate, I have a bad prostate, so that's ongoing, and I take Flomax and something else for it. I use an inhaler now. I had to use this thing here because when I caught COVID pretty bad when I had COVID, and I had to be hospitalized when I had COVID, and it messed my respiratory system up. And so at times I feel a bit winded and stuff like that. So they tell me to use that when I do. And other than that, I have the mental health issues, which are way more severe than I ever thought it was. You know, I never knew that I battled depression. I never knew that I had a bunch of anxiety going on with me. I never knew I have been diagnosed for PTSD and some of everything now. Yeah, I have. And so, and Pacific Northwest Pilot Project, they pretty much, they help me. They don't only help me with my housing. They help me with a variety of things, you know. They counsel me. They come to my home to see me. They came to the jail to see me. The home for people. They came to see me. They were trying to maintain my apartment for me, and hold on to it for me, so that I wouldn't have to go through that whole thing over again. But I'll tell you, in the last 30 days, since I think they sent a letter to the parole board also, if I'm not mistaken, home for the Pacific Northwest Pilot Project. In the last 30 days, I've lost my apartment. I don't have my apartment anymore. They came to me and they told me, they said, well, Anthony, Home Forward wanted to let someone else get your apartment since we don't know the status on you yet. Because there's others out there, they said, but they are holding on to my, I didn't know I had Section 8. I thought I was just getting a subsidized income, but they had did some lottery and I have won the lottery and I have Section 8. They said they're gonna hold on to it for me. And upon my release, they're gonna go with me and we're gonna go find me a place, which is a good deal. So I don't have to too much worry about that.
So if you're released, you're saying that you would rely on them to help you find housing?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a lot of resources. But I will rely on them to find housing because they're my housing people and that's who I deal with and they have housing for me. They maintained my housing. They kept my place for me the entire time I've been in jail. They just packed up my stuff, about three and a half weeks ago. And so today be rented to someone else or whatever. But they said upon my arrival home, and you can contact Pacific Northwest Pilot Project. Chris, I believe his number and his information is in my packet. And he can advise you and tell you what I've been told, that upon my release, they'll get me back into a place. But until then, I will more than likely I'll go home to my parents' estate, or I'll go and stay with my significant other for however long it takes for them to get me into a place. And from what Chris and them tell me, I'll get in really fast. So I have a job waiting for me that pays $48 an hour, 19 cents an hour. So I'm eager to get on that job.
Which job is that?
The flagger's job, working for IMN Specialty Traffic. They said that their prevailing wage for me would be $48.19 an hour. And that's what I'll be working. And I asked them how soon I'll be able to work. They said the day you get home, you can go to work. So I'll join the union and I'll do that. I won't have to cut hair. I don't want to cut hair really. So although I can cut hair, I'm pretty good at it. But I can go do that and it's gonna be tough for me when I go home. Because the first thing I have to look to do, to be perfectly honest with you, is to get into drug treatment. That's first order of business, is to get into the drug treatment. And if I don't get a bed in there right away, then I'm going to have to go to the organ exchange clinic and deal with the intensive outpatient treatment, which is really intense. And it's going to take me a matter of like about 3 hours a day. So between work and treatment, I'm going to really have enough time to go to bed, get up, back to work, back to treatment. And those will fill my days basically for quite some time. I will be able to work on my books and get them through in my spare time and try to find some investors for a bank product that I built, which I think right now I can't really deal with that, and I just plan to find some investors or somebody to pitch a deal for me to the private prison industry, and I'll be done with it. I'm going to have to turn it over to somebody else. I can't deal with that right now.
Well, here's my last question before I check in with my fellow board members, which is whether you think the board should release you and what would be different this time on supervision than what you just went through.
Well, I think what would be different this time is that first and foremost, I would utilize the parole office this trip. I would expect to check in with them often, and I would expect to be accountable to them. I would get with my doctors at Providence and continue my mental health medications. I think that what would be different is that I won't be using any drugs, and I won't be using any more drugs. I can't use drugs. They've already have warned me, and I'm not suicidal. So I don't have any wishes to kill myself. I will continue to abide by the laws. I'll get with my attorneys and the courts and deal with my other issues that I have to deal with. I have a lot of things. I have a lot of work to do. And so I'm up for it, and I know that I can do it. And I'll utilize my sponsors and my supporters and my peers at all the organizations and agencies that have written letters in support for me. I appreciate them greatly, and I want to be able to thank them for supporting me. Yeah, if I really do, because they don't have to. They don't have to. And so, and for agencies like Pacific Northwest Project and Home Port, and those places are pretty big places. They don't have to write the parole board. They took it upon themselves to do it, and I appreciate it. So I think that my father just turned 92 last week, and I certainly need to be there for them. I think they want to know, just like you, what's going to be different, Anthony. What are you going to do? And I'm going to be a better son, a better father, a better grandfather, a better friend, and a better productive member of society. And I'll be accountable for any and everything that I do. And I understand and know what I'm faced with here today. And I know that I would have one shot at this, even dealing with my charges and everything, to do what's expected of me. And there'll be no room for moving this way or that way, and I don't care to. So I have a long-term goal of being able to do a nonprofit and help people and be of service to people out in the community. And that's what I want to do. So hopefully you'll hear from me. And when you hear from me, it'll be because I've done something significant in society to help those that are less fortunate than me. And I've been pretty fortunate. Like I said, I have a lot of supporters and a lot of people behind me. And a lot of people don't get what I've gotten. You know, I don't know of anyone's doctor from Providence that wrote the pro board for them. And you're the pro board, you probably know. I don't. But I've never seen this type of support ever in my life. And I'm appreciative of it.
Thank you for that. Let me check with Ms. Kuklinski.
Mr. Link, I appreciate all of your submissions in regards to the work that you've done since being incarcerated. I saw the certificates for when you were in Inverness, the Flaggers certification, but as well as the treatment readiness courses that you went through. It looked to me that you have done some relapse prevention work. At least that's what was communicated. And since it sounds to me like everything that has kind of transpired over the last 3 years is a direct result and indirect result of your drug use, I'm wondering if you have determined what your triggers are for using. So we'll start there.
My triggers, I think number one would be that I can tell myself, well, I can do this and get away with it and that it'll be okay.
Okay.
And that's a trigger for me because I can't get away with it and I'm certainly not going to be okay. My other triggers would be going into places where you play video poker at and stuff like that. I have no business going in those places. I don't need to be in those places. A lot of my associates, they don't go into places. My associates, honestly, when I came home, they're as old as me, and I was out and about. They asked me, well, Anthony, what are you doing? You know? And I would see they're not was out there. They're normally in their beds at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And so my trigger would be for me to just when I'm out, there's no one else out there. I have no business being out there. Another trigger would be for me or to have a drink and to do things that I think that I can do because I've never really done them all that much before. Drinking was never a big problem for me, so I think that I could take a drink. Meth was never a problem for me because I had never used meth. So I figured that I could use meth. So to do those types of things that I think that I can do is a trigger for me. The interventions that, and I have some treatment knowledge, you know, my interventions for any of that stuff, now I can certainly use the parole office. And believe me, I will call and tell them myself. Yeah, I most certainly will because I know that I'm facing death. For me, it's death. And being that in my past, I've hurt people regardless of whether it's morally or mentally or physically in the community, and I have, and I understand that today. I don't want to ever do that ever again. I don't want to ever revisit that ever again. Because I know I've left people with scars that they may still have today. And I don't want to ever have to revisit that ever again. And I don't want to ever be the cause of someone hurting today from something that I've done. I don't want to do it to my parents or my kids or my grandkids. And so I have no business doing anything like that. So yeah, I will call the parole office and ask, hey, what can I come in for a minute? Or I certainly would use Mr. Fester. I have no problem with coming by his agency and sitting in there, and they're going to hold me accountable. They're going to You know, one day Mrs. Festus, he said, "Hey, are you high today?" I told him, "No, I'm not high." He said, "Well, come here and take a UA." I said, "Well, yeah, I am." You know, so I can go to these places and hold myself accountable. I can make calls. I can use my sponsors. The bottom line is I know better than to do the things that I have no business doing. And I would say that my other triggers would be dressing nicely or or financial issues and stuff like that. But then those are not really my triggers anymore because I'm a lot older now. I make pretty good money. I have nothing to spend my money on, really. I save a lot of my money and put it into my retirement pension with the Charles Schwab, or my grandkids take it from me. And they're pretty good about doing that. So those triggers that I normally would used to have, or I want to just go out in the town and stuff, there's no more going out for me. I'm a senior citizen now. And so I want to go home and go to bed.
Have you, I mean, I hear about the people that you're going to use. You're going to, utilize the parole officer. You're going to utilize Mr. Fesser. You mentioned a sponsor, and I don't recall from the materials. Do you have an actual formal sponsor?
Well, I had my sponsor was Mr. Ronald Williams. He works for he used to work for Flip the Script in Portland, but now he works for Central Cities Concerns Mental Health Department. So he was a sponsor of mine. So I would re-recruit him. And there's other people out there that I certainly would ask to be my sponsors, that guys that have done 25, 30 years in prison, that are doing all the right things, and that are of my age and stuff like that, and they're maintaining their sobriety. They would be good sponsors for me, because they understand what I've been through, where I've been, and the reason why I may be having a hard day or whatever it is. And so I have to actually get back into the recovery community and seek those people out and utilize those people.
And by the recovery community, like, do you intend on attending AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, things like that? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I even want to, when I'm personally better, I like to start an early morning podcast for, believe me, I would have to have my grandkids and them help me with the electronics and however that stuff goes. But I like to do an early morning podcast with people in addiction and stuff like that. I understand that giving back will help me stay sober. Doing, helping others will in turn help me. And so I plan on doing a bunch of that stuff. So NA and AA is something that I would do. And I know that I couldn't just do one meeting a week or something like that. So I would basically have to find me a group to where I can check in almost on a daily basis, and I know that can be done because I've had sponsors before. That was sober 20, 30 years, and they checked in their meetings daily for 30 years. They checked in daily. So that's not impossible for me to do.
Are you attending AA or NA currently?
I don't know what's here. I've been here for about 30 days.
Okay.
And I haven't seen anybody here. I've been basically in the cell or on the phone talking to people in different agencies and stuff like that. I have no idea what's even here. I don't know what's here.
Okay.
I don't know what goes on here. And it seems like everything's sectioned off here, where they basically keep you in groups and stuff. And, I don't understand the facility.
Well, and I would just, regardless of how much longer you're there, I would certainly encourage you to, kind of figure out where, the facility that you're in, what's offered, what you can benefit from, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Are you, you've only been at the facility 30 days, so you may not have involvement.
I talked to a lady yesterday for the first time, and she was just spoke to me over a Skype like this here about my medications that I'm taking.
Okay. Was that through BHS?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And is that the first person you've talked to then about your mental health medications
yeah,
since you've been at the Department of Corrections?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you haven't been able to work with someone consistently. You had a Skype visit, and do you have another one scheduled?
No, she didn't say she was going to schedule me. She said if I have any problems with any of my medications or anything, to let her know, and to send a kite to let her know, or something like that. And when I was at Coffee Creek, I talked with some other people at Coffee Creek concerning my medications. But as far as what's here, the NA or AA or any of those groups, I don't know if they're here or not, to be perfectly honest. How these guys act around here, I don't even know if they're there. There are a bunch of young guys that are here, and they're all into something that I'm not really into. And
Well, and I certainly can't speculate what's at every institution. My experience is that generally AA and NA is at all of
It's
the
here.
institutions.
Yeah.
But it
I'll
isn't
certainly
something
ask.
that, yeah, that would be great. That's what I would suggest, is start having
I'll ask.
conversations with people. Okay.
certainly yes.
I think that was it in terms of my questioning. Yeah, I was just looking through my notes. So those were all the questions that I had. Thank you. And let me check in with Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. And Mr. Reese and Ms. Kuklinski, I don't have any further questions. Y'all have asked the questions I had. Mr. Link, I just want to echo Ms. Kuklinski and just really encourage you, while you're waiting for the board's decision in your case, I just really want to encourage you to just do everything you can to get involved in whatever you can get involved in there. Let's just kind of help better you in your current situation, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Bailey. That's certainly good advice for you, Mr. Link. Here's where we are. We've been going for 2 hours, and that is, as I understand it, those are all the questions from the board. But we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll hear from Mr. Fesser and Ms. Misa and Mr. Sewell, and you'll have the chance to give us any concluding remarks, Mr. Link. But right now, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 3:13.
Okay. Thank you.
Back on the record, Mr. Link, did you have a chance to take a break?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Great. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Professor, you've been patiently waiting. You're muted, sir. If you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go. And this is the time if you'd like to make a statement to the board.
Oh, well, yeah. Of course, my name is Michael Fesser. I am the executive director of Going Home 2. We have two sides to our program. We have a recovery side, and that means I have a recovery resource center. I have peer support specialists, employment specialists, housing specialists, and case managers. I also have a women's transition house and a men's transition house, totally separate places. And then on my other side, I deal with the highest risk gang members or people to shoot or be shot. I do relocations, funerals, mediations, and safety plans. I also speak in the prison. I teach a class in Columbia River, soon to be probably OSP. We're working on that now. And I have an office at OYA and teach class in there because they wanted me to help kind of change the prison. I did meet Anthony, I would say probably in 2021 or at Columbia River. I'm not for sure about the date, so I could be off a little bit. Met him in class, came home. I didn't have the resource center at that time, or maybe we met a little before that. I'm not for sure. I think a little bit before then. I don't know what it's now anymore. I can look it up. But anyway, now I have a recovery resource center. And like he said before, I've seen this. I'm a guy that comes from a history of that way back, and I did prison time in 2002 to 2004 in the beds. Ever since been home, changed my life, give back to the community. Definitely would be there to support and hold him to a higher standard. After me first meeting him, we didn't know about his addiction to that level. Once he came home, he was doing so well, like he did tell you guys he was working. But I guess this opium, and I know that it takes over and it does some stuff and tears up a person's life. I'm always positive with him, telling him, hey, I'll get you into a place right now. Let's get you going inpatient, outpatient. I have those relationships, and I'm just here to say, if you guys are to release him and let him fight his other case or release him, I would be the first to get him into inpatient or basically inpatient treatment or outpatient treatment, whatever's best. And we would support him in the best way possible, but it's going to be all up to him. I can't want it more than he wants it. And if he wants it that bad, we want it better than that. But it's all depends on him. But we are definitely open to help him and do anything we can to have him be a positive returning citizen. And that's just what it is. And that goes for not just him, That goes for any and everybody coming home from prison, because I understand the struggle, and especially with people that look like me and been through this. And for these guys, it's been a long, long time. They do come home and stay on the right track, but then sometimes they want to try using something, and they've never done that. They should not be using it all. But willing to help and give a chance, and God gave me a chance, and I'm gonna stick to what I'm doing to help folks. We'll help Anthony any way we can, and that's all I really have. And if you guys have any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Fesser. I do have one question about your program. You've heard during the hearing, Mr. Link talked about mental health issues. He's taking mental health medication. Does going home to address that, or a dual diagnosis?
Yes, we have partners that we are close partners with, and that's like the Organ Change Clinic. Like, I can make calls to get guys right in the door, and that's like a inpatient in a sense, because she runs, it's Organ Change Clinic. She runs a tight ship. And then we do have mental health individuals that we work with that kind of look like us, so they can feel more comfortable with dealing and going through those issues. And we don't just pass you off to this other organization if we don't have that resource. We walk you through it, because you would have a peer support specialist and a case manager, and that's where he would start, instead of having a employment and housing right now. Let's worry about his health and him staying clean. That's what we would do, and we do have those relationships.
Okay, thanks for that. Let me check with my fellow board members. Are there any follow-up questions for Mr. Fesser?
I don't have any questions. I just appreciate that the work that you do, because it's so needed in our community, and I just want to thank you for that, and thank you for being here and supporting Mr. Link. So I'll check in with Mr. Bailey.
Similar to Ms. Lindsay, Mr. Professor, I don't have any questions for you, but I do really appreciate just being able to hear both in the materials as well as from you today about your program. I can't recall if I've seen you at a parole board hearing and I've heard about your program before. I feel like this may be the first time. And it's just really great to hear about this program and to know that it exists. And it's really good for us to know that you're interested in working with Mr. Link. So thank you, sir.
And Mr. Fesser, if you have someplace to be, you're certainly free to go if you need to. Of course, you're also welcome to stay. But thanks again for being here. And I know Mr. Link appreciates it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, man.
Ms. Meza, do you have a statement for the board?
Yes, first of all, I wanted to make clarification. I know that there might be some misunderstanding as to whether the type of supervision that Mr. Link had. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that he was placed on a reduced supervision caseload, which we would generically call a case bank, based on his LSCMI scores, which a parole officer conducted on him prior to coming to my caseload, and he scored a low, which made him eligible to come to this reduced supervision caseload. He was given, he was, and other people are given when they come to that caseload, an actual face-to-face visit in the office that explains to them that they are still on supervision, what their requirements are going to be as far as reporting, meaning in this instance, they don't have any specific reporting dates that they have to check in. It is stressed to them that they need to keep the parole officer informed of their address, of any changes with their employment, any telephone number changes, so that when that time comes, if they need to be reached, that the PO can actually get a hold of them. So that was something that was provided both to Mr. Link and anybody else that comes onto a reduced supervision caseload. So the other thing I wanted to point out here is that there wasn't any, that was the result why there wasn't any contact between him and myself. And the reports that were cited as far as past evaluations in his past, he is, the board might be aware of that he's been on the same custody cycle since 1978 without a break. And that it originally started with a sex crime on a stranger to stranger, or not a stranger to stranger, but on a stranger victim. And that the assessment that he was given back, as he even referenced to 1996-98, stating that he was a career criminal, kind of goes into play with his history of being on supervision and his multiple robbery convictions, and that he has been on supervision before, and he has been revoked due to failure to obey laws violations. I do not have available to me any specifics about the actual medications that he is taking for mental health, but I think that Mr. Link has made it very clear, and it, from what I do have, is that these are these were drug-induced psychosis. And as some of the board members here might be more aware than others, that as far as keeping him on supervision, he would not qualify for services available to mental health people with mental health issues, because these are mental health issues that were caused by drug use. And they're not any actual, being that he's been on supervision for so long and in prison for so long, some of these symptoms that he describes were not noted, and it's not a psychosis of this type would not be something that would be generally diagnosed from my, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but from my training and experience, would not be diagnosed at his age today. I find it interesting the way that Mr. Link speaks to all of us with regards to memory issues and difficulties with what's going on in his life when we were talking about his life in general, but then specifically to compare what was said today, not compare, but to point out today, is when he was telling us about the issues with the case that is pending in the DNA, and how factual he was, how clear he was referencing to these reports. And so he's basically, that report back from 1996-98 is pretty spot on, that he was going to continue to engage in criminal activity, especially if he was using his, alcohol or drugs, which he has admitted he has. And at this point, I feel that allowing Mr. Link to remain in the community would be would put the community itself at danger. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for those remarks. Ms. Kuczynski or Mr. Bailey, do you have any follow-up questions?
I don't have any questions. I do appreciate the clarification, just kind of from a case perspective. So thank you for that. And I'll check in with Mr. Bailey.
No questions, but just thank you, Ms. Mesa, for here and for.
And Ms. Mesa, same thing as I told Mr. Fesser, if you need to go, if you have other things to do, you're certainly free to do so now. You're also free to stay, of course. And thank you for your remarks. At this time, we'll hear from the representative from the committee jurisdiction, which is Multnomah County, and Deputy District Attorney Travis Sewell. And this is your opportunity to address the board.
Thank you, board. My name is Travis Sewell. I'm a Deputy District Attorney. I've been a Deputy District Attorney for almost 30 years now. I'm currently assigned to the Justice Integrity Unit. Thank you for allowing me to make a statement on behalf of the committing jurisdiction. My position is at this point, I would ask the board not set the release date and deny parole. I do think that Mr. Link has some further work to do before he's released to the community. I would like to point out just a couple preliminary matters. I did notice that 1978 rape 1 conviction that begun his current custody cycle. And I do find it significant that it appears that he was never treated for that, either through a faulty evaluation or through no effort on his own to seek sex offender treatment. The primary reason I bring this up is Mr. Link made statements today that fairly recently he was augmenting prescription sex enhancement type drugs such as Viagra with methamphetamine to further his ability to have sexual relations. I would also like to point out that he does currently have a pending robbery in the 2nd degree that's currently set in January for trial. I did reach out to the DA on the case, Mr. Meadows. Despite Mr. Link's factual assertions to the contrary, according to Mr. Meadows, it is a very, very strong case. Not only does the state have the DNA, according to Mr. Meadows, it is quite clear on the tape from Dottie's that it was indeed Mr. Link that committed this robbery. Also, the amount that Mr. Link was trying to steal, it was, I believe, a little over $300. It's clearly an indication that he is a threat to public safety at this point because he's willing to commit these serious crimes for a small amount of money, obviously to fuel an untreated drug addiction. So with that, I would like to tell Mr. Link, I think it's his lucky day today because I did visit CRCI yesterday. Obviously, I don't know it as well as Mr. Fesser, but I did tour the facility with the corrections grand jury, which by statute has to tour all of the Multnomah County correctional facilities, including CRCI, once a year, and the grand jurors issue a report about the conditions and management of all the facilities, and the district attorney acts as a liaison. So during that tour, one of the things we did visit is they have a dorm, I think it's number 7. It's called the co-occurring dorm, and it is specifically designed to treat people such as Mr. Link that clearly both have substance use disorder and a mental health diagnosis. And that, I think, is further augmented by, I believe, that recent report that Ms. Coons sent us by, I think it was Dr. Saladick, because he did reference, he didn't name the disorder, but I'm assuming that was for privacy issue, but I'm quite certain that there is a mental health disorder that would make him eligible for that program. There was the head mental health therapist gave quite an impressive presentation.
And
according to him,
Mr. Sewell?
Yes.
So I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but before you go on further about the amenities at CRCI, Mr. Link is actually at Two Rivers Correctional Institution.
No, I know he's there. I was just, what I was trying to tell the board as part of my reason that he should be revoked. Well, I guess just if I could just finish the presentation, what my goal is I think that there's a perfect place for him to get to, and I will help him get there if he wants. If that makes sense. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. And I'm sorry I interrupted.
Okay.
But please proceed.
Yeah. So in any event, again, and I think that you made a good point in that I don't know the internal regulations that DOC has with regard to movement and placement of AICs, but I do know he's in the Multnomah County Jail right now. So in any event, this facility at Columbia River I think would be perfect for him. According to the supervisor, they have a 100% success rate on release to the community. They'll reach out directly to resources such as Iron Tribe and other places in the community. They don't allow their graduates to go on public transportation. It's all personal transport to appropriate housing. And in any event, I do feel it was a perfect place for him. And if he is revoked, or if he's not granted parole, and he is recommitted to DOC, I will actually personally reach out to Superintendent Hansen to see if Mr. Fesser or Mr. Link can serve his time there. I imagine a combination of the 70-month presumptive on the new case if convicted and whatever revocation sentence he gets may allow for some sort of transport to CRCI at some point. And also that is the release facility. So if he's going to release to Multnomah County, DOC will do everything that they can to cycle him through that particular institution. And according to the supervisor of that particular unit, that's usually where they get these folks, is at the tail ends of the sentences of usually it's about 24 months or more. So anyways, with that, I think that's most of the points that I wanted to cover, but I do think that he needs to treat these issues in a secure setting for both his own benefit and for the benefit of the community. I think releasing him into the community would be a huge mistake at this point, because I do not think he controlled either of his disorders. So with that, I would ask that you do not grant parole at this point, and I will tell Mr. Link that if he does complete that program and if he stays free of DRs and is otherwise eligible for release with a good release plan, that our office would support parole at that next hearing. Thank you very much for your time, board.
Thanks, Mr. Sewell. And just by way of clarification, Mr. Link was released to the Department of Corrections, and he is at Two Rivers Correctional Institution at this time. But the board appreciates your statements, and I think we understand the gist of what you're saying. Mr. Link, this is the time, if you have any closing remarks for the board to consider, and I would just ask you to direct those remarks to the board if, for example, you want to respond to anything that Deputy DA Sewell said or PO Mesa.
Yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to any further treatment that would be offered to me, and if the time came, I would take the district attorney up on his worry about getting me into that program. But hopefully today I can be afforded the opportunity to continue the treatment and the things that I already have been positioned to deal with, my mental health issues and my drug addiction. I think that I'm a safe bet to release back out onto parole with the constraints that I will have and what I do have. I don't think that it will serve any meaningful purpose to continue to warehouse me. And that's about what I would get here is simply just being warehoused. I know for a fact that I can be a safe person to be out in society. I have again lots of support and meaningful desires to do what's necessary for me to be able to sustain myself in an appropriate manner out in the community. My court issues, I have to deal with them as they come. But until that time, I would like to be able to continue what it is that I'm getting with Providence and the other agencies. That because the parole, the PO's service, the parole service don't have the availability for me or the infrastructure to be able to treat me with my mental health issues. As I heard my parole officer say, still I maintain my health insurance to where I can get, and I do have the appropriate treatment and get into the necessary facilities that I'm supposed to be in. I have excellent doctors, and with that, I can get into the best facilities and do the work that I need to do in order to be able to bring myself back to where I need to be. Today, I'm doing much better. I'm not as I was. It's just that I voice what I go through because I understand where I'm at today, and I understand who I am, and I also understand where I need to go to and where I need to be. And so that's why I immediately say that I had these issues and I had these ongoing issues, and I had to treat them in that fashion. So I don't waver from any of the hurdles that I have to get over, but I think that I'm well equipped to be able to get over those hurdles. And I think that I understand that your first priority must be to the protection of the community. I can say that with all the constraints that I'll have and that I do have, and the measures that I'll place upon myself will be safeguards to assure the parole board that I'll do what's necessary in a meaningful fashion and be a productive member of society, and I'll be able to maintain being a citizen in an appropriate way. You know, like I said, remaining here can only serve simply to warehouse me. I'm of an age today to where it is I don't have a whole lot of time left. I don't believe it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. People of my age, they pass away and they go away. I would like to not die in here. I would like to be at home with my family. And I would like to be at home with my family to support my family. My parents are of age today. And I have grandkids to help raise. Uh, my spouse is crippled and relies upon me quite a bit. I'm needed at home, and I think that I can be at home in good standings with everything that I have, that I am surrounded with, that I can be accountable to everything I do and everything I say and everywhere I go to the parole officers with I don't care, so security bracelets, whatever they have for me, I'll be more than happy to accept them and do what's necessary and deem desirable in the board's eyes and the eyes of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Link. Appreciate your remarks very much. Appreciate you answering the board's questions this afternoon. That will conclude your future disposition hearing, and the board will deliberate later and issue its decision. So not this afternoon, and we'll issue a written order to you. So we're going to go off the record, and that concludes this afternoon's hearing. Take care, Mr. Link.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fester. Thank you. Yeah.